Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Team Reinvented Gaming podcast. I'm here with veteran entrepreneur and finance connoisseur, Dawson Black. Dawson, thank you for being here today.
Awesome to be here. So I'm not sure if there's anybody out there watching that already knows who I am, but just a little bit about me. Just transitioned out of active duty military and now looking to put a foot in the door in the financial industry. Um, Currently being trained and licensed through a firm to become a financial
Mhm.
advisor and learning all things that involve business ownership, personal finance, investments, and global economics.
Nice, nice. Um, so I remember in the Marine Corps, we used to work together, if people don't know. Um, and you did talk about finance. I remember in the shop and everything like that. Like you had some your opinions on finance and like whatever finance came into the conversation. I always hear you interject and everything. So tell me about like where did your interest in finance begin
So,
and or why?
from a very basic level, my concerns with finance and becoming more proficient in that area really started like at a childhood level. My parents were on the appearance level good with money. We had things that you would expect people who are doing pretty well for themselves to have. I'm talking multiple vehicles, a pool, a boat. Those things weren't bought with money that they had. So if you can imagine the average everyday family, and then you add maxed out lines of credit and gross overspending to that situation with a family of five, you got three kids under the house, and all that they really have is junk food and minimal resources available, and you just fuel a situation that inevitably led to what happened, which is finances weren't good. There were things causing more and more difficulty in the relationship between parents. Eventually that turned into a divorce and a split family situation. So I've always had it in me to want to do better than my examples.
Yeah, I
So
think I think a lot of people are probably in your shoes. You see what's going on. You want to do the opposite of what you were taught and or saw.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, that was
okay.
totally the perfect point too.
No, yeah. So it seems like okay, that's so that rhetoric of you see the American dream unfolding in front of you, to say the least, right? And you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So you get into finance, and I meant to ask you, do you have a degree in finance right now or anything? Or do you have
So no degrees. I do have access to the GI Bill,
okay.
um,
Yeah.
and my full benefits are still a thing that I can utilize in the future. Um,
Okay.
I intend to, but mostly for right now is vocational training and learning the craft of what it is to be a financial advisor.
Okay. So I've been looking at your Facebook and seeing what you're doing. So you went to MilCon 2022. Until did I say it right? Is it MilCon?
Yeah. So Mil
Okay.
MoneyCon,
MilMoneyCon. I'm sorry.
the organizer is Lacey Langford, and she runs a separate podcast called The Military Money Show, and it's sponsored by Navy Federal or USAA. I can't remember. I think USAA primarily, but also like partnered with Navy Federal in order to provide financial knowledge, resources, and not so much the advisory piece. That's kind of separate from what they do, but just pushing as much information to the general public as possible regarding finances.
Okay. What makes MilMoneyCon different than any other financial networking event you can go to? Like, what did you learn there? Like, why did you choose that one out of others? Is it because it's military based? Like, you can be around people that are also veterans, or is this, or do they offer something that's different? Like, what did you take away from that convention?
Right. So the perspective here is to bring together people from the financial industry, people from different levels of entrepreneurship and business ownership, people with military experiences in those organizations. And additionally, there's a large group for social media advocacy for the same things. The difference here is when you go to other financial conferences, you're looking at folks who are within primarily only the financial industry. This,
Okay.
and I think the main goal, main objective of everything that was discussed here over the past 3 days was to develop a more connected, integrated format for financial professionals that work with the military specifically and work with veterans, vet spouses, and the military community at large on improving their situation, whether it be I'm trying to start a business. I have no idea what to do. I am struggling financially, and I really don't understand any of the terms, or like how can I progress financially when I just got out of a career field where I am capped to a 5-figure salary, and my housing and my food and everything that I'm supposed to be paying for when I get out is already taken care of on the front end, and I don't see that income. Those kinds of issues at large are what is trying to be tackled here. So preventing people from having to dig for the resource, preventing people from having to feel like they're lost and they have no support.
Okay. So it seems like a collective of people that you can just go to with pretty much any financial issue or problem that you have and see what knowledge you can get to help you through that situation. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. Been
So
super busy learning for sure.
no, that's legit. That's legit. Finances is a funny thing in 2022, man. Like there's so much going on between entrepreneurship and the rhetoric that's being spewed by these different people. So like, what are your thoughts on like people like Grant Cardone? You know, I'm pretty sure you know who Grant Cardone is, right?
Right. So
Like
I'm
what
aware, and that's like that scope of things. It falls within real estate investing, producing passive income. Those topics were covered. Specifically, there was this former staff sergeant, and he had a business that he started as a sergeant, utilizing VA benefits, talking about VA home loan, and he would house hack and utilize his resources to
like flip
turn
houses?
like not even necessarily houses. He would turn duplexes, multiple rooms. Say he would pick up a 5-room duplex. He would live on the couch, rent all of the living space, and since it's his permanent place of residence and he lives there, he's not in violation of any rules or regulations related to home loan and home ownership for tax purposes. And he's pocketing his BAH, renting out the space to other folks, and putting himself in position to repeat the process.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
get it.
I think Grant Cardone's along the same levels, but it's not the same as the advantages of doing it in the military with a set income
Yeah,
and a math problem to solve rather than a business problem.
yeah.
If that makes
So
sense.
yeah, that does make sense. That does make sense. So what I wanted to allude here was, do you think somebody like that is doing more harm than good? Because like I think that a lot of entrepreneurship financial advice is not, I'm gonna say not good for the average person, if that makes sense. I think some of these influencers are influencers and the not that they don't believe what they're saying, but I feel like they are saying stuff that a true financial literate person or somebody who actually studies finances, economics, and or microeconomics or macro will probably disagree with and say, hey, for the average person, this may not work. This risk to reward factor is too high, too much margin for the average person to take. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on like the advice given out by these financial influences on social media?
So
Do you think it's good or do you think it's bad?
when you take raw and I mean at the lowest level, when you take information that someone's putting out on a social network, that information has no responsibility to be true.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That being said, I'm not going to speak to specific individuals and what's morally wrong or right in their business.
Yeah.
I don't want to be inflammatory about it, but the practices that you see sometimes can be misleading,
Okay.
or not all the information is there. So
Okay.
a lot of what the perspective that I have is always do research, always know what you're getting yourself into, and take time to speak to professionals who have been in the industry you're trying to set yourself up in for
Mm-hmm.
years, or
Okay.
someone who can explain in detail what the ramifications of your choices are going to be. So if you tell just random people, hey, here's how you're going to make your first million, and then you tell them to take on massive amounts of debt, but they don't know how to utilize the overhead, leverage the debt, and turn it into the income, you're just telling people don't rent, buy a house and flip it. Like that is such minimal advice that in those short form deliveries, when you have less than a minute in front of the person you're trying to educate and you just shoot an idea off and then
Yeah.
they go and try to execute, there are not only bound to be flaws, the flaws are going to be numerous.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And that's why you're saying, like, if you like something a financial guru it says online, and you're like, hey, this might be a good idea for me, like bounce it off other people first, or not other people, but like bounce it off professionals as well, and get different perspectives to the achievement you're trying to accomplish before you just take someone's word. Because that's really interesting. You said that too. Like they only sometimes they spew this information in such a short amount of time that they say the key principles, but they don't explain how to execute on them. And execution really is the importance of it.
Also, a lot of the time, those people that are saying, hey, I am your beacon of light, I am the hub for all advice you need to know about real estate investments, and then they're like, the upfront cost for my knowledge and my course is going to be multi-thousands of dollars. Like the crowd they're preaching to and the crowd they're trying to sell to might not be the same person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because that does make sense. Because I think to circle back real quick, that probably that makes sense. Yeah, because the people that will be paying a couple of thousands of dollars, or the people that will probably afford to, if they can afford to, that means they probably have enough financial literacy to understand that they need to move forward with all the models in order. Nice. Yeah. So it's 2022. What do you think? Then this is going to be kind of a generic question, but it's kind of straightforward, right? What do you think the number one like financial literacy topic that needs? My words are escaping me. What do you think is the number one like financial literacy topic or principle that needs to be discussed in 2022, or the principle that you think that's already discussed that is misleading or not entirely correct? That's kind of a loaded question.
So at large, a big part of the reason that I was even able to come into this conference, my first episode for this podcast, I interviewed this guy, Brandon Childers, to explain his background. Military guy, got out as an E3, was doing like crew chief for Hueys, like just
it's helicopters,
wrecking house and shooting machine guns out of a helicopter door, those kinds of things. He leaves the Marine Corps, utilizes his GI Bill to become a psychology major, and then takes those skills, analyzing the mental aspects of what is his target audience, and it is that crowd of entry level professionals who get thrown an income, but don't get educated on how to maximize the potential of their earnings. So you give someone a salary of $30,000 to $50,000. That's your median income, is like, I would say $35,000 median income these days.
Okay.
And then you don't teach them the financial tools they need to use in the situations that they're inevitably going to face, i.e., jobs don't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
If they do last, there's going to be an impact where some of your earnings have to be utilized to prevent damage, i.e., a loss of a family member could occur. You could lose your car in a car accident, and now you've got to buy a new one. You could have your wages garnished, or in a military instance, your wages could be cut based on a performance issue. I guess in a more general aspect, you could be laid off. Things could happen where that revenue stream that you were so dependent on then ceases to be as consistent or goes away altogether. How are you going to give someone a salary and then not provide them the tools that they need? That is the financial problem. So basically, how I'm going to word this is, I'm going to talk about the problems up front, and then I'm going to go into the actions that we can use to resolve those problems. And then we'll talk about the resolution and what the results look like in the end, and what our goal is ultimately.
Yeah. So before you go there, so you're saying that the number one issue in 2022 in current society is that people who are presumably younger, like 18, 19, 20, getting a large amount of money for the first time, and not knowing, you're not having enough financial literacy or to handle it well, is what you're saying. That is what needs to be taught currently. That is what's under taught in current society to people, and it's not just military, right? You're saying military and or the general public.
Absolutely. I think it's a greater issue at large. And you spoke to the age range of 18 to 20. Sure, that's the target audience, but it can be broader. I say personally, I say 18 to 35.
Wow.
There are people far older than your entry level positions that still struggle financially because they weren't taught when they were young.
Yeah, and then they have kids and they teach them wrong in a cycle, and now it's the blind leading the blind. Okay, so I don't want. Yeah, no, you could go into, if you. I don't want you to go too deep down that rabbit hole currently. Yeah, I don't want you to go too deep into it right now. You could talk about it. I'm not going to hold you back from talking about it. I mean, you say what you want to say. But then I'll interject if I need to, if I have any follow up questions. So that's the problem. So what do you think the solution is, and what is the solution that you think?
So as far as solution actions and steps that we can take, if you introduce the concept of, maybe not so much how do you put away $1,000 or $100,000 or target values, instead of saying, hey, here's this car loan, or here's this home loan, and then not teaching those people how to deal with those financial circumstances. Instead, what if we started with positive reinforcements to build confidence financially, right?
Okay.
So say we teach someone with a basic budgeting tool, numbers that they can use to move forward and not put themselves at as much risk as they have been previously. So they receive a daily, weekly, monthly budget goal.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they meet it or not, agnostic to what the targeting is. the more you make people financially aware of how they can be more effective in saving, investing, and producing a nest egg,
Yeah.
then you can reward them for those behaviors, those internalized processes where they commit to something,
Mm-hmm.
and those habits that they form.
Yeah, it's almost as if like they see the fruits of the labor. Because if you
Right.
budget correctly, you'd be like, wow, it's the end of the month. I actually have money. This is crazy. That could be $1, that
And
could be 100, but to somebody who's constantly overdrafting, or somebody who's really in that struggle, when you're that low, the only way to go is up. You know what I'm saying? So,
and here's
like,
how you incentivize it, right?
okay,
So now that we've laid out the basic concept, we give them goals. Let's say Dorian Jones or
mm-hmm.
Dawson Black, they have been utilizing our budget strategy, and now for this week they have made a budget and they have saved X amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
or they have met their budgetary goal 5 out of 7 days, 4
Mm-hmm.
out of 7 days. And then you provide either a dividend as a reward where it's like, here's $50 because you made your budget goal 6 out of 7 days. Or
Interesting.
here's a badge that you can rock at our next event, or here's some free swag because you met budgetary goals consistently enough that we feel we should reward you XYZ. And that's pennies on the dollar compared to the spend plans that we currently have to provide financial resources. And it
Interesting.
incentivizes the continuation of a growth mindset and financial awareness and how to prevent an issue before it starts.
Yeah, that's interesting. Never heard of that before. Never heard of. Let me give you money for managing your money well, right? You see that in like stocks, I
Versus taking
suppose, but
away money for mismanagement of funds. When you
yeah,
overdraft your account and then they fee you, how does that feel, Vice? When you save 6 out of 7 days a week and you're not spending your $18 at McDonald's
yeah,
every day, and then you gain money.
yeah. So, so at what point does like do you think it could ever turn into, hey, like, okay, I'm managing my money well. I know that if I hit 5 out of 7 days, I'm gonna get $50, and then the next 2 days, whatever, screw it, I don't care. Do you think people could start managing money well only for the incentive rather than the actual act of learning the value and actually becoming resourceful? Like, do you see that's a problem?
So even if they are initially taking money, setting it aside, and not spending it the way they have been to receive that goal,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't mean that they're not still saving that money, or still producing those results that they otherwise wouldn't be financially if it wasn't for the implementation of a program like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And the concept at large, we'll put a title to it because this is what I talked to Brandon Childers about in my first episode, is gamified finance, gamified budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn something into a game and you provide an incentive rather than the methods of punishing someone
Mm-hmm.
for doing things the wrong way, which is
Yeah.
often the mindset of capitalist America and the military industry, where it's like, oh, you're not doing well, so we're just going to punish you for that.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn that on its head, I think it's a more productive concept. And I think a lot of people would agree. It's just a matter of implementation.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. No, that's very interesting concept. So your solution. So what's your? So do you have? I know you have the Spare Change podcast, but are you working on it? Are you working on an app? Are you working on some piece of technology, or are you working on a system to do this? Like what's going on?
So this is where I will act as a advertising mechanism.
So okay, you probably gonna say what I think in a second. You're gonna bring it up.
So I can show you the app that someone else, Brandon Childers, the guy I keep bringing up.
Okay.
So, and I invite anyone, military or non-military, to follow this path and at least utilize the tool. So
Mhm.
it's called Freelance Corporal.
Okay.
And what it does is it turns budgeting into not so much a nightmare perspective. This is what it's going to look like if I can put it in front of the camera.
Yeah. Yeah. Catch some of it. Okay.
It's probably
So
mirrored right now, but FREELCPL, and
okay.
you can find it in the App Store, or you can type in FREELCPL.com, and you'll get right to where you need to be to at least see and understand what's going on there.
Okay. And that app, um, it does what you describe, positive reinforcement through
Right.
its methods and all that.
And
Okay.
it's not a one-on-one solution. The thing that puts it out in the front line and really separates it from everything else is it's a social concept where you have other people that are all doing the same thing and working towards that common goal.
Okay.
So these are
That
baseline concepts. I'm not going to dive too far in the weeds, but if we could implement something like that or that at a greater scale and introduce more and more people to it, I think it would be beyond beneficial to the communities we're trying to reach.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. You know who Dave Ramsey is, I assume, right?
I do, yes.
So Dave Ramsey talks about how money it's a behavioral science. So but also I listen to Brandon. He talked one time as well. He said the same thing. Like he has a degree in psychology. So money is behavioral science, and I'm seeing a lot of reinforcement behind that thought between what you're saying, what Dave is saying, even what Brandon's saying. And I think if a lot of people understood that money really is behavioral and not just a math equation, um, I think a lot of good would come out of that. But yeah, that's a very interesting concept of positive reinforcement through money, to help people. That's interesting. I know we can't go into too much detail down that rabbit hole
Right.
right now, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. I haven't thought about that. I never heard about that theory before at all. And yeah, if that does get implemented on a greater scale, um, a lot of good can come out of that, I think. So we have, we're pushing the end time of about like 5 minutes left. So I'm gonna hit you with two more questions. My first question is, where can people find you if they want to connect with you? If people have the same thought process and the same values of you, like where can they find you?
So my at is going to be spare capital S underscore change capital C underscore podcast capital P. And you can find me on Instagram with that. You can follow the link tree. It'll push you to my Spotify, my Anchor, my Apple Podcast, all of those directories. Additionally, YouTube, where I'll post videos of the conversations that I'm having. I'm still working out the kinks with becoming regularly scheduled and actually putting out more and more content. But the things that I've learned here are definitely going to help in producing a more forward thinking and producing a more responsible role in this environment, and at least trying my absolute hardest to push out the knowledge that I'm going to retain.
Nice, nice. And my last question is what I ask everybody: how do you want to reinvent your industry?
So if I was to sum it up in a way that I would say it more than once,
Okay.
the way to reinvent the financial industry is to start from the ground up. And that means more than one thing. That means you need to find your clients where they are. You need to, whether they're clients or people you're discussing the issues that they're having with, you're not going to find someone who's struggling with money necessarily in a financial conference or in the comments of a page discussing finances every day. Those folks are in places where they're seeking to get out of a situation. They're running from something. They're not in a position to discuss their earning power or discuss their financial plan. They're dealing with things like massive credit debt, college and student loans. They're dealing with a car that they can't pay for because they got assigned a 26% APR rate, and they have no way out of these predatory situations. Those people are the people who need it the most. So I would say start from the ground up. Also start from the ground up, because the way that finances work right now, it's a very dog eat dog world, and the cost that it's currently taking to receive the financial information and financial knowledge that should already be readily available, the cost that it takes those people to reach someone who can help them is a huge problem. So if you can do as much, I wouldn't say not for profit, but work that doesn't cost the client initially, and building the relationship and building the confidence to where they can afford to say, okay, this is where I'm investing now. This is where I've saved my money and I want to do something with it. If you can build them to that point, sure, absolutely, you can begin the thought of, hey, well, I offer additional financial services. I can help you invest here, here, and here. You can have those further discussions. But if they can't even have that discussion, and they're looking at massive debt that they'll not be able to recover from, there needs to be a different discussion had. And that's why I say start from the ground up.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. So, no, yeah, Dawson, yeah. I can't. I hope you come out. You're gonna be my financial advisor one day. Just letting you know. You get your stuff. You're gonna be my CPA or something. I'm gonna have you in my pocket for like, hey, I'm about to make this purchase. Like, let me know. No, man. Like, yeah, everything said was definitely was amazing. Was amazing. You definitely offered a perspective to money that I haven't heard before. The positive reinforcement, and I think you're correct that if that does get implemented in the way that we know, would touch a lot of people, that a lot of good could happen, and that could really shape the financial industry as a whole and start putting us in the right direction as the average Americans. So, yeah, guys. So go check out Dawson's podcast, his content. I promise you'll learn something, and that I'm excited to see what he accomplishes in the future. So thank you guys, Dawson. Once again, thank you for being on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And
I appreciate it.
And to you guys watching, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.